Welcome back to Copper Star Precision, the channel dedicated to getting you more points at your competitive shooting matches. Now, while I want you to score more points, I did not do so in this match. Sitting down there at 13th place, a little over 50% of the first place person's score. And this was just a rough match for me, and I don't want to be one of those people who blame it on the firearm, but I feel like I know enough to know when I'm pulling shots versus when the rifle isn't really doing what it's supposed to be doing. And in fact, here is some footage of me after the match. I shot a 3-shot group at the sight-in targets that we had at the beginning of the match. And by the end of the match, I produced this wonderful 2-inch group at 50 yards. So here's my reaction to seeing that.
Disappointed!
So obviously I felt like something was off with the rifle, and I actually brought my lab radar out. I was testing velocities, and I was down about 35-40 feet per second from previous measurements, and the temperature has dropped since last month, so it's to be expected. So I don't know if it's the velocity being lower, so much lower, that's kind of throwing me out of my tuning node when it comes to my barrel tuner. But I think more of the culprit is that I didn't really clean my rifle between this match and last match. And as the match went on, I feel like the rifle got progressively worse and less accurate. So I'll do some cleaning videos and we'll see if that remedies the problem. And then we'll probably retune the rifle for these colder temperatures for matches coming up. But without further ado, we can jump into the first stage.
That's ours, sir. You ready?
Yep.
Stand by. Go.
So with the first stage, don't kill your exercise plan. It was the far target and the KYL with the prone and the bucket. And I think I did a good job here of controlling my movement. Of course, I wasn't really making my hits. So I make 2 hits on the far plate, so I'm feeling kind of good. And then I spent all this time basically trying to engage the 1-inch on the KYL, and I felt steady. Felt like I was transitioning well, and the problem is when you miss, you have to transition every single time. So I'm doing all these transitions, and I'm repeatedly trying to hit this 1-inch target. Now, this is not the first stage I shot this match. We're different squads, but I'm putting them in the order that the booklet has them, so it's easier to follow along. So this is later in the day. But by this point, I am just missing shot after shot. There was very little wind. Nothing that was pushing the bullet one way or the other. It's just, I feel like the overall group and accuracy of the rifle has just fallen off and really struggled. But I was able to make 9 out of 10 shots. This is a heavily movement stage. And I heard the timer go off, and I thought it was for me, but it was actually the squad next to me. So I kind of like stopped at the last shot and gave up anyway. But I would have been able to get that last shot off. But it was tight on time. So if you're at this stage, just make sure time is a priority.
Time. Send it.
Alright, I'm ready.
Up next is the rooftop stage, and here, of course, I'm trying to build a good position, so I spend some time at the beginning of the stage, really get my rifle set up, and then halfway through you'll kind of see me change positions, because I think I can get into a more stable position, so I kind of lean on my side. And again, I felt really stable. I felt like I was making good trigger pulls. There were a couple of shots throughout this match that I know I pulled. I jerked the trigger too hard. But it just seemed like anything I did, and here's the holdover stage, so I'm making sure my crosshairs are in the right spot, so it's going to be center hold for the first pair of targets, and then 0.5, and then 1, and then 1.5 for the last pair of targets. And I just feel like there's no rhyme or reason to which way the bullets seem to be veering off, and end up not making a lot of impacts. Felt super stable, felt like I had a good game plan going in, and just things weren't going my way.
back. Something wrong, sir. Shooter's ready. Stand by. Go.
Here's the Elf on a Shelf stage. Now here was actually, I think, the first stage that I had this match. So just coming off of the sighting line, feeling
I hear too
decently
much
good about
beeping
the
over
course
there.
that I'm getting. I miss a couple of the shots at the beginning, and I think there was a little bit of left to right. That didn't seem like there was much out there, but once I started holding left edge of plate, I basically cleaned the rest of the stage. Strategy here was a little bit different than in my videos. Basically took a prone position, alternated between prone and seated. So you'll see me go prone, go seated, go prone, another prone, and then seated for the last one. So kind of alternating between those two positions, keeping it pretty simple. It seemed to work out for me, nice and stable with that pump pillow. And here in the match, first stage of the match, feeling okay about the rifle, not happy for dropping points on this stage, but feeling like things are still in control. You know, unfortunately, things go south from here.
You don't need a rear bag on this.
Get back.
Close enough on almost stage so you can get their knee almost. You know?
Get back. Get back. Get back.
Which start are you going for? 1.5. Move up from there. You're ready. Spotter ready. Stand by. Beep.
Get back. Get back. Stop, sorry.
Next up is the seated stage, Christmas Cookie Overload, and here I wasn't super confident going into it. I felt like something was off, so I decided to go for the second smallest target, worth 8 points instead of 10. I think it's the 1.5 inch. And I kind of dance around, and I finally start making hits, so I kind of try and get into a rhythm here. I've actually done something different than what I did in my videos. The sawhorse here is much taller than the sawhorse I have at home by, a good 6 or 8 inches. So I actually have my plate on the front of my rifle to kind of give me a nice flat surface, and I use a bag on my knee to rest the rear rest. So this actually ended up being pretty stable, and I felt like I was getting pretty stable shots off, but they just weren't connecting. But here I was able to hit 9 out of 12 on the second smallest target, so still pretty confident at this stage, and then from here on out, it's pretty much all downhill.
How many was that?
Get back. How many is that? Get back.
Ready.
Alright, shooter ready?
Ready.
Stand by. Go.
Last stage here is the tank trap stage, dreidel, 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 where we're spinning around. So I remember in the strategy video I was talking about deciding where to start. I decided to start on the right as tip number 1, go to the middle, and then tip number 3 being on the left side of the tank trap if you're looking down the Course of Fire. And that's because when I end up on that side, I can easily just slide down into the middle for the final shot. Barely get off enough shots in time. It's a lot of movement. Make the first 2 hits, and then everything else just seems to be all over the place. So this is kind of where I knew something was amiss, and I couldn't really figure out what it was. Didn't think it was the wind. I really practiced a lot on the tank trap because I had so much trouble at last month's match. So I felt like I was just super stable, nice kneeling position, settling the bag, getting the rifle down, and everything looked stable to me on the crosshairs and in the video, and shots were not going where I thought they would go. So ended up getting 3 on the stage out of 10. So overall, pretty poor match for me, but it gives me some ideas on what I need to look at when it comes to the rifle. So we're going to be doing some cleaning stuff, talking about cleaning regimens, and each barrel and each rifle is different, so I have to start learning what this barrel needs for a cleaning regimen, how many rounds it can go between
What's
cleanings, and basically just figure out what is going on. So that's pretty much the match. Thanks for sticking around, even though this wasn't really a performance that I'm proud to share with you guys, but good, bad, or indifferent. I'll share with you what I learned, and hopefully that helps someone else. So felt like I was pretty stable in all the stages. Felt like I had a good game plan. I just feel like the rifle wasn't cooperating, and going to the firing line afterwards and looking at the 50 yards, kind of zero targets, and trying to put a group up there, I'm like, wow, there's something amiss. That's not me. So we will find out what that is in future videos. So stick around. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, please score more points than I did.